Welcome to the Humble Hoof podcast. My name is Alicia Harlov. This is a podcast for both horse owners and hoof care professionals, offering discussions into various philosophies on the health of the hoof and soundness of your horse. Please check us out on Facebook or at thehumblehoof.com. Garrett Ford has always been intriguing to me because he puts his money where his mouth is. He creates all these incredible products for hoof protection, and he uses them on his 80 horses, doing some pretty heavy-duty work. Since following him on Facebook and seeing some of the awesome stuff he does, I knew that I wanted to talk to him about not only his business, but also his products and how he uses them to increase his horse's performance. Say your name and how you're involved with horses.
Okay. My name is Garrett Ford, and I'm involved with horses mainly from the endurance side of things. And I started riding endurance horses when I was a kid. My mom took us around the country, and we got to ride and camp and, ride horses all around as I was growing up. So that kind of got me involved. And then I'm also involved with racing Arabians on the racetrack. And then I'm also the owner of Easycare, and we make a lot of different products for horses' feet. And so kind of involved in a lot of different areas. And believe it or not, my wife and I own about 80 horses.
Wow. And do you do the hoof care for your own horses, or do you have somebody else do it?
I would say I do about 99% of it myself. I tell my wife that's my punishment. So if I have to have 80 horses, then I do all my own horses, trimming, and then the glue work. So I try to do everything myself just to kind of keep myself engaged and tuned in. And, it kind of keeps me really involved with what the professionals are doing out there. I'm not a professional trimmer, but I do my best to kind of keep up and do it myself.
Oh, that's awesome. For some reason, I assumed that you were a trimmer just because, or, a farrier, because I've seen your videos where you're applying, Gluon products and trimming. So,
well, that's one of the nice things about doing what I do with the hoof care side is, I've had a really good group of people that I look up to and respect come and spend time with me at our house. And so what I've done when, for example, somebody like Pete Ramey comes and spends time with me, and I've had Pete visit on several occasions. So what I usually do is I'll go through my horses and trim them, and then I'll parade Pete around or something, whoever it is, and say, I'd like your feedback, and don't feel like you're going to hurt my feelings at all. If you can give me feedback on what I'm doing right and wrong, that would be helpful. So I've been able to do that with, I use Pete as an example because he's been several times, but I probably have, lists of 20 people that I really looked up to in hoof care that have spent time at our house, and I've really relied on them to, kind of guide me down hoof care path. And so it's been really nice doing it myself. And, and it really kind of, as you're doing endurance riding or you're taking a horse on the racetrack and you do it yourself, those are sports where if your horse isn't sound and the hoof isn't trimmed and maintained well, you're not going to succeed. So it's hard to hide much in those sports.
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely want to ask you more about the endurance and the racing side in a little bit. But before we get to that, can you talk a little bit about how you got involved with hooves?
Well, so my involvement into hooves, so I grew up in a family that had horses. So my mom and dad were very influential to me, and they like I said, they took me around the country, and I basically got to compete on endurance horses when I was a kid. This is up, 12, 13 years old. So I had the opportunity to ride the Tevis Cup, which is, most people say is the hardest 100 miles in equine sport. I rode the Tevis Cup when I was 13. And so kind of long story short, but my three brothers and I played collegiate football, all on football scholarships. And so I went from somebody that could ride horses to, roughly 260 pounds. And so there wasn't many endurance horses that liked carrying around a kid that was 260 pounds. And so what happened with me is I went to the University of Colorado on a football scholarship. My junior year, I had a knee injury, which sidelined me for half the year. I played again my senior year, but not as much. But I had to pick a product and a business to do my senior business project on. And so for several reasons, I picked the Easy Boot product, and Dr. Neil Glass, who owned the company at that point, allowed me to, dig into numbers, study his product and use that as my senior business project. And so as I continued through my senior year, I made Dr. Glass an offer to purchase the business. So that was in 1993. I was a 21 or 22-year-old kid. And so I went from not knowing much about horses' feet to I now owned, a hoof boot business, and everything was horses' feet. So the Easy Boot was the first commercially available hoof boot in the world. And in 1993, I believe we were still the only commercially available hoof boot model. So you start to run into all the people who, trade shows, farriers, hoof care professionals that talk hoof, and you quickly become immersed in the hoof and how it functions and why hoof health is so important to a horse. And so that was 1993, and obviously we've progressed a lot since then, but that's kind of how I got into the horse's hoof. Most people don't know how critical hoof health is, and when you're running a business that makes hoof protection products, we have to really, I became a quick study.
Yeah, definitely, I'm sure. And so when you're doing, I'm sure it's different depending on the horse, but when you're doing endurance rides or racing, what kind of products do you typically use on your own horses when you're doing that?
So the products that I use the most, so the horses that we compete in endurance, they're actually barefoot about, I'd say, 99% of their lives. And so they live barefoot. They do a great deal of their training 100% barefoot. So we have a 75-foot circumference Eurosizer, and we have really good footing inside the Eurosizer. So our endurance horses do, when they're getting fit for races, they do roughly 13 to 15 hours a week of conditioning barefoot in the Eurosizer.
Wow.
And so, the majority of their time they're barefoot. And then when we are riding them in the mountains, I personally do just about all of our conditioning in Easy Boot gloves. And then in big 100-mile races, I switch from a glove to our Easy Boot Gluon shell for races. And, another thing I love doing a lot with the gloves is we have a really nice conditioning hill in our backyard that goes from 7,000 feet to roughly 12,000 feet in 12 miles. And it's a dirt road and it's fairly hard packed. And one of the things I do a lot with gloves is I will take a packing. I usually do it with a pour-in packing, and I try to do it with the soft product. But on those horses, what I'll do is I'll drill in the bottom. I'll boot them up in gloves. I'll inject a packing, a soft type packing that will set up in a minute or two. Then I'll take the horse up and down the hill. And I've had people here when I do it. So when I come home, I'll pull the boots off, take the packing and throw it away. And it's amazing what a lot of people will say, well, that was, on that horse, you just use roughly $15 to $20 of packing.
Yeah.
And I said, well, this is arguably one of the best endurance horses in the U.S. And his legs are sound. I mean, his legs are cold. He's sound, and he looks like $1 million.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting people's concept. But so to get back to your question, so the products I use the most are for what we do in endurance. Is I like the glove for conditioning. I like the Gluon shell for racing.
And do you typically, like for racing with the Gluon shell, do you typically put it on just for the race and then remove it? Or do you have them in it for longer periods of time?
I usually put them on for the race, especially the 100-mile races. I put them on maybe 3 or 4 days before. And then I usually, haul the horse to the race, haul them home. And, depending on work schedule, I'll usually take them off and, roughly a week after I put them on.
Okay, yeah. I have some horses in them right now, and I've really liked how they're doing in them. So I've been excited to try more stuff.
Yeah, no, and it's, the interesting thing about the Gluon products is we have, you'll hear a lot of people talk about, are they good in heat? Are they good in environments where there's heat and moisture? A lot of people think there's a tendency to have thrush and feet to turn bad quickly. And in my opinion, I don't see that. And, a lot of people say, well, you're in Colorado, you're in a dry environment. And one of the things that people don't realize is that where the majority of our horses live is we have big pastures and they're flood irrigated. And when we flood, we flood pretty aggressively. So that the majority of the horses are usually standing in, depths of water, at least once a week up to, their fetlock or higher. And a lot of times those horses are in Gluon boots and shells. And we have one horse that I actually keep in Gluon shells pretty much all year long because he's a really severe, he drags his toes on his back feet really bad. And I've done all kinds of things with chiropractic and we've done a lot of things to correct it, but he drags his toes really bad in the exerciser. So he'll take his dorsal wall down to almost nothing. And so what I've done is I just keep him in Gluon shells. And I have a lot of people say, well, it's ruining his hoof, and so what I'll do is I'll say, you know what, there's 10 horses in this pasture. I just took Gluon shells off him and he's been in them 6 weeks for, the last, 4 or 5 cycles. I want you to go out and pick the horse that has erect feet. And, within an hour of taking them off and trimming them, in my opinion, you're not able to tell a difference between a hoof that's had them on 6-week cycles and a horse that hasn't had them on at all.
Yeah, I just got back from a clinic with Daisy Bicking in Pennsylvania, and it's, pretty wet up here in the Northeast. And she her apprentice pulled off a pair of the Easycare Performance. And she had packing and Artemide as well. But the sole and the frog looked beautiful. And she even said, do you guys see any thrush? And we were all surprised that, this horse has lived in them for a while and the feet looked great. So,
yeah. And I think, using Artemide and using some things to prevent it are also helpful. But, it's just, there's one of those misnomers out there with gluons and, heat and, thrush and bacteria. And so, I personally think if put on well and using the right products, you can eliminate that totally.
Yeah. And so I see that you are kind of always working on the next product. It looks like it seems like you really enjoy kind of coming up with new innovations for Easycare.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that process, about new product development?
Yes. And so, the majority of times, we have, you can see the products we manufacture and sell by, kind of what's up on our website. And, I think at this point we manufacture more urethane or synthetic options than any company in the world. And so we have a great line of, pleasure riding, performance boots, therapy boots, and we also have an easy shoe line that's nail on and glue on. And so what usually happens for us on the innovation side is that I would say 90% of new products come from feedback of customers where they say, well, I like this, but can you make it, with an open toe so I can change breakover? Or I like the features of the glove, but I'm frustrated with the hook and loop on the gaiters, or I like this therapy boot, but I'd like a pad that lasts longer. And so a lot of it is that coming from a consumer. We also have we also get a lot of wish lists from the professionals out there where they're like they're trying to glue a product on, but they're having issues in certain areas, and so I'd say the majority of the ideas come from either consumers using product or professionals using products. So that kind of starts the innovation process. And then what happens with all these ideas, what people don't understand about horses, and I think the professionals do, but the big difference between a horse and, let's say, a human athlete is that a strong human athlete a long time, many times is 150 pounds, or, let's say a football player gets up to 250 pounds. A horse, we're talking about a 1,000 or 1,200 pound animal that can go from 0 to, 40 miles an hour in no time at all. So the forces that we're trying to work with on a horse are so different. And so what happens with most ideas in our industry is that we have to make a mold, and we have to make a prototype or an injection mold to even see, majority of times, if a product has any merit. And so I'll run into people all the time and say, oh, that new shoe you're doing, I had that idea 10 years ago, but I didn't make a mold because molds are expensive. And I said, yeah, you're preaching to the choir, buddy. because I got probably, I probably have 100 molds that are just sitting with mothballs on them. And, on average, I would say a mold on average is roughly $15,000.
Wow.
And that's for every size.
For each size?
Each size.
Wow.
And so, and that's where, some of the innovation stuff gets hard is, you may have an idea that you think is a good idea, but if you're going to make a size to fit every horse, and you start doing the math of, $15,000 per mold per size, you quickly start saying, am I ever going to recoup my investment?
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of small sizes and large sizes that are really to help horses, because our small sizes and large sizes are never products that make Easycare any money. They're really just to help horses.
Right.
Hi, this is Dan Schroeder, and I have been a farrier for 12 years, and currently I do farrier work on the weekends, but I am also the hoof care practitioner and vet dealer representative for Easycare. I met Garrett quite a few years ago, and I have been using the Easycare products in my practice for quite a few years. Kind of started out with the Gluon products, the Easy Shoe Performance and the Performance NG. Kind of went on from there, adding a few products here and there, and getting into using more of the boots. And then more recently, since the inclusion of the Flex Shoe, I've been using that quite a bit also. The reason I came to work for Easycare is they're a company that just really seems to strive to keep making better products and finding better ways to help the horses, help make them more comfortable. They never just sit back and say, you know what, that's good enough, we don't need to move any further. And that's always kind of the way I tried to run my business. A horse is happy, but what if we could do something to make him a little bit better and a little more happy? So, when the opportunity came up to go to work for Easycare, my wife and I talked about it, and it seemed like a really good fit. And, the people that work for Easycare, I've never really met such a group of people that are so like-minded. Everyone in the office is really concerned about their job and concerned about learning, and everyone kicks in for new ideas, for new shoes and for new boots. It's a real pleasure working for Easycare, and I don't think we could probably have a better person running the show as Garrett. He is 100% driven in, like I said, not letting anything sit. What can we do to make this better, and coming out with new products. So it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to it, to the future of it, where we're going to go from here.
So then how do you decide, as you're coming up with all these products, how do you decide what goes to market? I know that you test a lot of them yourself, right?
I do. And so, one of the things with having as many horses as I do, I had a product, this weekend that, we were snowing sideways and we had mud and slop, and you had family in town, but I went out and I put a new product on this horse, and he didn't do much athletic, but he walked around and ran around the slop for 4 days. And so, what I usually do with most of these products is I first test them on our horses, and I first test them for fit. Do they fit the horse correctly? Do they agree with my philosophy on the hoof. And then, from there, a lot of times it's weather dependent because right now we're in winter, but even in winter, I'll do a lot of pretty hard riding. But, we have really difficult trails, like I said, that go we have a dirt road and we also have a trail system that goes from 7,000 feet to 12,000 feet. And even a new prototype product, a lot of those products are going up and down that hill numerous times. And after being in the business since 1993, we've been in this business, you can tell pretty quick what's going to work and what's going to help horses. So if we get to a point where it's working on our own horses, then it's what I usually start doing is I have a small group of testers that I rely on for feedback, and I usually send out products to other people, and I'm pretty guarded with who I send stuff to because and one of the challenges, especially on the boot side of the business, is that there's so much hoof boot success that's on if you size it and if you fit it correctly.
Right.
And so if I've been having big success on horses, walk, trot, canter in difficult ground, mud, slop, and you send it to somebody and their feedback is, well, I can't get it on and it doesn't stay on. There's a lot of user error, in my opinion, also in hoof boots. So, I always try to get people that I think have a pretty good head on their shoulders in terms of, they have to get the right size. They have to fit them correctly. And so once I get it to the people that I rely on for testing, if they also have good success, then what we'll usually do is we'll start with one mold. So for example, I have a lot of horses, if I was talking about an Easy Boot glove, I have a lot of horses that fit into the size 2 and 2.5 for an Easy Boot glove. So what we'll do is we'll usually concentrate on making the first test molds in a size where I can test it on a bunch of horses. And then what we'll do after testing is we'll make tweaks to those molds. And then if it comes back from others in the market testing well, then what we'll usually do is we'll grade those molds up and down into different sizes, and we'll do a full mold run. And then those are the products that are released to market in the coming year.
And do you do any heat fitting with your boots when you're using them yourself?
I do some heat fitting. I try to do the bulk of our testing without heat fitting. And the reason for that is that, the heat fitting is an incredible method with boots. The biggest challenge with it is that, I would say that the high number of consumers that use our product don't want to do anything with heat fitting. Right. And so, with the heat fitting, that's more on the professional and hoof care practitioner level. So the main things I try to do with heat fitting is the urethane that we're using, is it compatible with the heat fitting process? And so, on most all of our boots, we use the same type of urethane. The urethane we use now for example, the glove or the Gluon shell is the same type of urethane that you'll see in the bottom of a Easy Boot Cloud or the bottom of an old Mac sole. And so that material really does well with heat fitting. So, aside from that, I don't do a tremendous amount in testing, because what I want I want the majority of our boots to work with a consumer that doesn't have to heat fit.
Yeah, definitely. And so, after that whole process of testing and trying them out on your own horses and trying to get it to market officially, what percentage of products that you actually work on and develop would you say actually makes it to market to sell?
Good question. I would say that, because we've been around for so long, I'd say I'm getting better at, knowing when a product is started, if it's going to make it to market, and, if we should put in the effort. So I would say that, the answer is a little skewed because, there's been so many failures in the past that, when we start a new product, I can probably say, well, that one failed, I'm not going to do that. And so there's all these things that I've already ruled out when I'm starting a new product. So I would say new products these days, when we're opening a mold, I would say probably 85% plus go to market.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah. And so, but a lot of when you get an idea, a lot of them are, no, that's not going to work because I probably have a 2,000 square foot space that's all the failures. But those are, over 25 years of failures.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff down there. But the interesting thing is sometimes I'll go down there and I'll say, well, this one failed, but I like this part of this one, and I can almost go down to my R&D room and take different parts and pieces off different boots and, put a boot together that works.
That's awesome. And I'm really excited to try out the new Versa. I've been seeing that it's hopefully going to be available soon. It might actually be available before this episode comes out. But that one you said came as a way to kind of make composite shoeing more accessible in terms of price range.
Well, it's, so what's happened on our Easy Shoe side is that we really started that product line with a Gluon only line. And so in my opinion, in a perfect world, the majority of hoof care professionals would have more skills with gluing. And so the biggest challenge with gluing is that you have to be very fastidious to your prep. You have to be very fastidious on how you store your glue, and you have to be very fastidious on your installation procedures. So, for example, your glue, your Easy Shoe, and your hoof ideally should be roughly the same temperatures. And so what happens with gluing is that, and again, I hope the professionals don't take this wrong, but I would say, in my opinion, there's probably less than 10% of the professionals that think they're good at gluing are really good at gluing.
Yeah.
And it's just because the time and effort to do it correctly, what happens is when people do it correctly, if you bill for all those hours and time, what happens is you end up charging for a product and a service that a lot of times isn't affordable.
Right. And
so when you do your prep right, when you do all these things right, and you start to work on your bill, you say, well, I don't know if I can bill that much. And so what I'm getting towards is that what we were trying to do with some of our urethane shoe lines that are nailed on is that, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make the process easier, where if somebody wants to fudge on the prep, and let's just say if somebody wanted to glue and use 2 nails or 4 nails and do some glue work, they have a product when they come back at 4, 5, or 6 weeks, that product is still going to be on, and they're going to be able to offer it to their clientele at a price point that's more affordable. And so, that's really the concept behind. We have the Easy Shoe Flex, we have the Easy Shoe Performance NG, and we have the new Versa. They're really geared toward, we want those horses to still be able to have all the benefits of urethane, and we want them to be able to be used by people that maybe don't have the glue techniques or don't want to invest the time and effort in the glue techniques. And so, what our goal is to really get some urethane, flexible, shock absorbing hoof protection products into the market where, we can get them at a price point where somebody isn't looking at it and say, well, that's, I believe in the concept, but I can't afford it. And what we're trying to do is get into that price range where we take the pricing concern out of the equation.
Yeah. I know I saw the email, I think, did it say that in the next week or two that hopefully it'll be available? Yeah,
so they'll be available in a perfect world. They'll be available, I think, Monday, is it the 9th? Monday the 9th? Monday, December 9th, they'll be available here in the USA.
Awesome.
The other thing we're going to have with the first version that we'll hit here will be the Versa. We'll have metal inside, and it'll be we'll have side clips, and then immediately following that, probably a month later, we will have the Versa Lite in a front and hind pattern. So that'll be a full urethane shoe with no metal inside. And there'll be size for front pattern and hind patterns. And the biggest difference you'll see in the Versa compared to the Flex is there's a lot more length in the shoe. So, most people are going to be trimming the length off, but at least there's length there to trim.
Yeah. And actually, I know that I had seen, but I recently went to a conference in September and was able to meet Curtis Burns. And he had on his table some like really huge urethane shoes. It looked a lot like the Flexes, but they were, clearly intended for draft feet. And did you both work on that together? Or I was wondering a little bit about how that came to be.
Yeah, well, so I have to give the majority of my education on the gluing side. I'd say 99.99% of it to Curtis Burns. In my opinion, Curtis has the most knowledge, and he has the best system for prep, gluing, and gluing success in shoes. So what happened with Curtis and I is early on when I started making my first Easy Shoe concept, I actually was trying to race a racehorse in a Gluon shoe that I developed, and I was having all kinds of issues with track officials and the shoe not being allowed for the rules. So I got introduced to Curtis Burns by Fran Jurga, and I told Curtis I was going to get on a plane and come out to see him. And so Curtis said, "Well, it's happy to talk to you on the phone, but you and I are going to be competitors." And so I'm not really sure we want to, I wanted to see you. So I didn't listen to him, and I went up to Florida anyways, and spent about 45 minutes talking to Curtis outside his building door. He didn't want to let me inside. And then I don't know how I got him to do that, but he opened his door and, showed me a lot about what he was doing and, successes and failures. And so what ended up happening is that Curtis and I became really good friends, and we licensed Curtis's patent technology in the majority of our Easy shoes. And so when you look at the Easy shoes that have the wire skeleton inside, those are built using Curtis's patented technology. And so what we ended up doing is the Easy Shoe products are really kind of a joint effort between Curtis Burns and myself. And so to get to your question about the larger draft shoes is that, so over the years, Curtis and I, because we're wired similar and we're dealing with, the same industry and we're dealing with a lot of the same challenges, we constantly bounce ideas off each other, and we're constantly adding products to the wall of products that didn't make it, and every once in a while we get a product out of it that we think is going to help horses. So on the draft size, one of the biggest challenges with draft horses around the country, especially when you talk about police horses and you look at all the carriage horses around the world, a lot of them are bigger horses, a lot of them are expensive to shoe, and a lot of them are working on hard surfaces. And so what we would like to do is do a couple versions of the Easy Shoe, make them commercially available for the larger breeds working on hard ground. We just think with a good product, we think, one, we can get the cost down, and two, we think we can have them wear longer, and we think we can make these horses a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, I definitely have had times where I've, seen a draft and really wished that I could get my hands on a bigger composite, because some of them are even too big for a lot of the boots out there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And, and a lot of the mounted patrols are going to bigger horses, and it's tough. And if they're in shoes, their shoeing bills are very, very expensive. And so there just is not a lot of commercially available options for them. So that big shoe that you saw is something in the works, and Curtis has it on several carriage horses around the country, and we're just continuing to test and get feedback on that line, especially before we go to more molds. The challenge when you start to look at draft size molds is that there isn't 2 or 3 molds we have to do to fit the draft horses. There's probably 10 or 12. And so, if you, for example, on our shoes, if you go from the biggest shoe, which is like in our flex line is a 5, if we wanted to make the drafts happy or the larger horse breeds happy, we'd probably need to do a 6, a 7, an 8, a 9, 10. We probably have to go up to 12 or 13.
Wow.
Yeah. And so on that shoe line, it's not just the urethane mold. We also have to do the mold of the metal stamp that goes inside. Right. And so on that line especially, we're really trying to get the feedback we need before we move forward, because that's probably off the cuff. That's probably a several $100,000 investment.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I know there's a handful of us at the conference that we're kind of asking him about it and would be happy to see that. But yeah, I'm sure it's kind of a big undertaking. So.
Right. And that's, the challenge with a lot of this stuff is that, yes, there's going to be a horse or multiple horses that a product can help. And so the challenge on the business side and the inventor side is that, at some point, the only way we're going to be able to keep our doors open and keep making products is if we're able to sell some of these products.
Right.
And so on the draft side, one of the challenges is there isn't a lot of these horses. And so Curtis and I have, had many discussions around, how many sizes, what's the price point, how do we make them, price competitive, but at some point pay off our molds. And, it may be a project we just do because we need to help horses. And there's been a lot of products that we've made, Curtis and I both have made, we've just done because it's the right thing to do for the industry. And, for example, on Curtis's side, he makes a lot of foal extensions and, stuff for smaller horses that have lower limb issues. And Curtis probably has 5 or 6 of the best foal extension products, and he doesn't sell a lot of them. The molds are still expensive, and he really did it because it was needed.
Yeah. I was able to see him give a talk on foal extensions and working with minis, and it was really cool. And that was another thing is that, yeah, those small sizes can be really tough. Like you were saying, that's another side of things that probably, doesn't always make a ton of money, but it's hard to find those small sizes too.
Yeah, and that's the thing when you get to these smaller and larger sizes, and also a lot of the therapy products, we're always looking at it as, does it help horses? Is it going to help the hoof care professionals? And, is it the right thing to do for the industry? So, a lot of times these projects don't pencil, but you know what? When you get those letters from people that, this foal is now straight or this mini is now able to live a better life. It's like, that's kind of really what it's about is getting the feedback from people saying, you helped my horse, and I don't think he would have made it without it.
Yeah.
My name's Curtis Burns, and I'm the one that originally designed the Polyflex shoes and was a full-time farrier and was just looking for an alternative to fix a few horses. And, little did I realize I was going to end up creating a business. I can't get over, the work ethic that Garrett has. He's like a bulldozer. He just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's been a great relationship. I don't know how else to say it other than he came to me, I guess it's got to be probably somewhere around 5-6 years ago now, when we first kind of met up. And I remember specifically reading a story that Fran Yerga had written on her blog about this guy that was, that owned Easycare that was trying to make a boot to be able to run his Arabian racehorses in. And, how much trouble that he was having. And I read the whole article and I was like, and I got to the end of it and I said, this poor guy has no idea what he's up against, because basically I'd already walked down that road with my shoes, having a synthetic shoe and getting the okay to actually run in it. And it was far more challenging than you could ever imagine, and the thing of it is I happened at the time to work for literally some of the very best horse trainers in the country, and I was struggling to get it done. So I was like, how is this poor guy going to get it done, in the middle of Colorado, at some little track, and with little education about, synthetics being used, So it was so funny because I hadn't hardly got done reading the article, and my phone rang, and it was Fran. And she said she wanted to introduce me to this, to Garrett. I said, Fran, why would I, she said, I think you guys should get together. And I said, why would I want to do that? I says, he's wanting to get into my space that I've struggled so hard to get going. And I said, yeah, he's so much bigger than I am. I mean, this is a guy that could easily run right over the top of me. And she said, no, this guy's not like that, And so anyway, she convinced me to at least have a chat with him. So anyway, she barely had hung up, and I always tease to this day that I think he was on the other line, because no more did she hang up, the phone was already ringing, and it was Garrett. And so anyway, we talked, and we hit it off immediately, talking to him, and I kind of told him my frustrations and my struggles that I had. And, and he says, I'd really like to, do something with you. And so, well, I kind of been down that road and it didn't work out so well. I just don't know that I'm really interested in going down it again. And he said, no, he said, listen, he said, I'd rather be in business with you than against you. And he says, just let's get together and have a chat. And he literally showed up at my shop within like a day or two. He flew out and I tell a story all the time. It was, he showed up, and literally when you're at my shop, if you walk through the front door, you're kind of almost in my manufacturing facility area. And I just really didn't want him to come in there. I don't know this guy, and it was just beaming hot. And he just come from Colorado where it was cold. And we're standing out in the parking lot, the sun's beaming on him. And he finally looked at me. He said, dude, you going to let me in there or not? He said, I'm dying out here. And I just looked at him and started laughing. I thought, all right, come on in. So anyway, and like I said, it's just, it's the best move I ever made. I mean, not only did I get somebody that we got to do some business together, but I ended up with a great friend out of the deal as well. And it's a unique partnership, really, because we both kind of continue on with our own businesses. But what we do is we occasionally get together on projects, and I'll do a little bit of prototyping, and when we feel we're kind of heading the right direction, then in some cases he's picked it up and then taken it on to manufacturing and distributing. I kind of still run my business, he runs his, but we have a good time being able to periodically get together on some projects. So it's been a lot of fun. And honestly, if, we're not completely in each other's business, sometimes it's nice to be able to have somebody that you feel confident enough to ask tough questions that you're going over in your head, and what might be the next place you want to go, or a thing that you might want to make, and is that a valid direction to go? And when you do this kind of stuff for a living, it's not very many people out there that have walked down the road that you can reach out and talk to about it, and get a legitimate answer and questions back, So it's been a really cool, like I said, I'm very thankful for him, and been a great fun. The biggest regret we have is that we're not closer. I wish, we could be able to spend more time together, but without me being in Florida and our business, running here, and him in Colorado, we get together when we can. So, but we talk a lot, and it's not always just business either. It's a friendship. So it's been pretty cool.
And, kind of switching gears a little bit, do you have a product that you've developed that's your favorite?
Well, you kind of asked that about the glove. I mean, in my opinion, I think I personally love the Easy Boot glove, and I've ridden thousands and thousands and thousands of miles in the Easy Boot glove all over the U.S. and had great luck with it. The biggest challenge with the glove is that you have to be pretty fastidious with hoof care, and with only 3 millimeters of difference from one size to the next, you obviously can't keep a horse on, a 6 or 8 week trim cycle. You have to be a little more diligent with trim cycles. So, that, in my opinion, the glove for training and the Gluon shell as a Gluon product, those are my go-tos. I probably have, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I probably have, more than 500 boots in my tack room. And I would say of those 500, I'd say 450 or 460 of them are Easy Boot gloves.
Wow. For all your different horses?
Well, so what I do is I have baskets, wire baskets that slide out from the wall in each size. And so predominantly our horses range from an 0 to a size 3. And so when I get a horse out, I know that, whatever he's got 1.5s in the backs and 2 in the fronts, and we'll get them, boot them, ride, and then we'll wash them off. And then they go back in those wire racks at night and they kind of air dry. And so that's how I keep all it's set up, really nicely, slide out. And when everybody comes in there, they're like, wow, that's a lot of boots. I say, well, yes, it is. But if I don't have a lot of boots, then there'd be a big question mark on what I do.
Yeah, right.
And so I'd say that's, it's definitely my go-to. That's definitely a boot where, I can boot pretty much any horse we have. I can go ride some of the most difficult terrain in Colorado at speed, and I have really, really good results.
That's awesome. And do you think, is that the most popular product among consumers too, or?
I wouldn't say so. Again, the challenge with the glove is that the hoof care, whether it's the owner that's helping or the professional that's doing everything, has to be very fastidious. So the biggest challenge with the glove is that, I would say, at the minimum, you have to be on a 4-week trim cycle or less. And so for the glove to continue to work well. And so the majority of people, trimmers for one, and also consumers that are getting their horses, feet taken care of, they don't do it on a 4-week cycle.
Right.
And so that makes the glove a little more difficult for those people to use. And so, so I would say our pleasure riding line with, the Easy Boot Trail Original, the new Trail, the Old Max, those pleasure boots that accept, more of a difference in trim from, let's say, a 6 or 8 week cycle to a fresh trim, are boots that are more popular in our line.
Yeah, I know. Maybe it's just because of, being a hoof care professional, but I would say the product I sell the most are the clouds, mostly because if I'm pulling shoes on a horse, I just usually, sell them a pair of clouds so that if there's a transition period that they might be living in those for a little bit, they're really comfortable and it gets the horse through any kind of discomfort fairly, quickly in my experience.
Right. Well, and that's the other, so, going into the, I'd say on the performance line glove, I'd say pleasure line, the trail products and the Old Mac, and then in the therapy line, our better product is the Cloud. And, just like you talked about, the Cloud is an incredible product for horses that, one, if they're coming out of shoes and they have any tenderness, if during the year at all there's any type of, abscess or any type of laminitic episode where we need to keep these horses comfortable and moving for blood flow, the Cloud is a really, really good product for us and has been really successful.
Yeah, and it's one, too, that I feel like it stays on well during turnout. And, I haven't had a horse yet that doesn't love them if they're sore, And I really appreciate the 45-day guarantee that you guys have, because I can, sell a pair of boots and be pretty confident with the owner that, if something happens or if, we messed up on fit or something, then I'll contact the company and we'll figure something out. So thank you guys for doing that.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where, we want to be fair. We do get returns back. And then, we actually have a brand new system on our website. It's called the Easycare Easycare certified used. And so what we're doing with products that come back that are in still really good shape but a little dirty is we're listing them and then we sell them. We don't have a lot of them, but we're trying to kind of turn those products and get them back out and have them used by consumers or professionals. So it's been good, and it's been, it's always one of those things when you get stuff back, it's a double-edged sword, but we've kind of turned it around and we're reselling the used products that are coming back in good shape.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for offering that, because I know it probably is a little scary to offer that because, you might lose some money, but I think it makes me more confident in being willing to sell, and I haven't had that many that have, needed to come back, so that's good.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. All right, so I think those are most of my questions. I just have one final one.
Okay.
Do you have any tips for owners or hoof care providers that are looking to get more into booting or composite shoeing?
I would say if I was speaking to a horse owner, I would tell them, one is to be patient. I would tell them to really work on getting a hoof boot that fits the hoof correctly. I would also tell a consumer to also get a boot that works with the type of riding that you want to do. And so, there's lots of different hoof boots on the market, whether they're Easycares or other brands. And so if the consumer does the right research, gets the right fit, I think majority of people are very successful. On the professional side, I would say, my biggest advice for somebody that wants to carry boots especially is to make sure you carry the fit kits of the different boot styles that you want to sell, because that'll really make your sizing more successful, and you'll make your customer much more happy if you get them the correct size. And then I would tell the professionals that are wanting to get more into gluing to really, really look at, some of the videos that Curtis Burns has done in terms of the preparation and all the steps you need to do in order to achieve gluing success. And it's interesting. A lot of times I'll tell professionals that, and they'll say, well, I watched a bunch of videos and that's too much work. And I tell them, I say, well, you know what? The best thing you can do is not glue, because, the horses aren't going to be happy. Your customers aren't going to be happy. And you're not going to be happy either, because you're going to be going out and you're going to be replacing shoes, right after you put them on. But on the other side of it, if somebody really wants to dive into gluing and really learn the prep and really get good at it, I think they have a niche in their industry, in their area, that they have a chance to really rise up and be the professional in the area that gets all the glue work. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And, any other questions or?
Yeah, I think that was mainly it.
Well, good.
Well, thank you so much.
Yep, no problem. I appreciate it. Thanks for thinking of us, and hopefully that'll give people more about the insight of what happens with these products.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of people who are excited to hear it. So thanks for being willing to be on it.
All right, thank you.
All right, have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. I always say that I'm slightly more hoof obsessed than the average person, and chances are, if you're listening to a hoof care podcast, you are too. So we should probably be friends. Feel free to find me on Facebook or email me at thehumblehoof@gmail.com.
Hi, this is Dan Schroeder, and I have been a farrier for 12 years, and currently I do farrier work on the weekends, but I am also the hoof care practitioner and vet dealer representative for Easycare. I met Garrett quite a few years ago, and I have been using the Easycare products in my practice for quite a few years. Kind of started out with the Gluon products, the Easy Shoe Performance and the Performance NG. Kind of went on from there, adding a few products here and there, and getting into using more of the boots. And then more recently, since the inclusion of the Flex Shoe, I've been using that quite a bit also. The reason I came to work for Easycare is they're a company that just really seems to strive to keep making better products and finding better ways to help the horses, help make them more comfortable. They never just sit back and say, you know what, that's good enough. We don't need to move any further. And that's always kind of the way I tried to run my business. You know, a horse is happy, but you know, what if we could do something to make him a little bit better and a little more happy? So, you know, when the opportunity came up to go to work for Easycare, my wife and I talked about it, and it seemed like a really good fit. And, you know, the people that work for Easycare, I've never really met such a group of people that are so like-minded. Everyone in the office is really concerned about their job and concerned about learning, and everyone kicks in for new ideas, for new shoes and for new boots. You know, it's a real pleasure working for Easycare, and I don't think we could probably have a better person running the show as Garrett. He is 100% driven in, like I said, not letting anything sit. You know, what can we do to make this better, and coming out with new products. So it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to the future of it, you know, where we're going to go from here.